You're watching Pulse for the 20th of March, and it is once again time for some Diablo news. In this week's episode, we take a look at the Diablo 3 Launcher or Installer story, patch 15 and all the new goodies and changes that came with it, a bit of talk on a real money auction house for hardcore mode, and more. Let's get straight to the news. First up in this week's news, we're going to have a look at the Diablo 3 Launcher story. So this is the story that's told to you when you're installing Diablo 3 with the help of both images and text. So yes, let's talk about installing Diablo 3 for a moment here. That's something a lot of us want to do right now, but the problem is that even if we do it right now, we can't play till May the 15th, so it's slightly pointless. The story itself is far from pointless though, and it gives you a quick recap of everything that happened in Sanctuary up until the start of Diablo 3. And I will say that it does make it all very interesting with some amazingly cool artwork. So you can see some of those slides of artwork on your screens right now, but I'm not going to spoil all of them, and I won't be reading all the text to you because that's something that I think all of you, and myself included, are entitled to when we actually get to install the games for ourselves. It's something we should look forward to and enjoy to its fullest when the time finally arrives. So that's it, that's all you're gonna get from me, but I will say that you can see the full thing in the description below this video, and you can even find download links for Diablo 3's client. Yes, if you want to actually download the client right now for any region, you can do so. It's all linked below. Oh, and for those worrying, the installer doesn't really contain any spoilers at all, unless you consider the happenings in Diablo 1 and Diablo 2 spoilers. That's up to you, I guess. Next, Diablo 3 Beta Patch 15. So this is most likely going to be one of the last patches before launch on May the 15th. I'm sure there are a few things that Blizzard can polish here and there, but I doubt that there are going to be any huge changes between now and then. Patch 15 is relatively small, and the biggest deal here, I guess, is that the gold auction house for hardcore characters is now available for testing. Otherwise though, a new quest selection feature has been added. This is accessed from the main character screen, and this feature will allow players to select which stage of a completed or in progress quest they wish to start at when resuming a game. That's pretty useful, I guess. And then next up, the costs for the first and second shared stash tabs have been increased. The first tab will now set you back 100,000 gold, and the second tab 200,000 gold. That's a pretty hefty amount. The levels at which character skills and skill runes unlock have been adjusted for most classes, and then lastly in the general changes, treasure goblins now drop slightly better loot and less junk. Then there were a couple of class changes for the monk, witch doctor, and for the templar. I guess it's not really considered a class, but we'll just count it as one for now. In the monster changes, the monster affix Thorns has been renamed to reflect damage, and lastly John Dar's poison damage has been increased. That's pretty much all for the patch notes, but at the end of the patch notes, Blizzard mentioned to us that as of Beta Patch 15, Battle.net authenticators have now been enabled for the Diablo 3 beta test. That is really great news, as I personally was feeling a little insecure not entering my code every time I logged in. Or at least every couple of times. You get the idea. Other than that, there were a couple of undocumented or unofficial changes that you can also find linked below. These include things like auction house notification icons that were added, a few more class changes, achievement changes, and a couple of other smaller things. Nothing of real significance though, and I will say again, as I'll probably always say, it's a good thing when the patch notes start getting less and less. That is, if the game itself is actually playing really well, like Diablo 3 is. The beta feels absolutely amazing right now. But anyway, let's move on to the next piece of news, and again, you guys can check the full patch notes out in the description below this video. Now we're going to have a bit of a talk about the real money auction house for hardcore characters. So this topic of discussion has popped up yet again, and there have been a lot of mixed feelings about it. Last week a poll was conducted on the official Diablo 3 community site's forums, and in this poll players were asked whether they should be able to use the real money auction house with hardcore characters, and not just the gold based auction house. The results of this poll were a lot closer than I thought they'd be. 44% of players said yes, they'd like to spend real money on their hardcore characters, whereas the other 56% said no, that's a pretty bad idea. I personally don't like the idea of allowing players to use real money on characters that might die and lose it all, but at the same time many people said that, well, if Blizzard don't allow them to buy items, then they'll just buy them elsewhere, on other sites or from other people. That obviously gave Blizzard a lot to think about. Jay Wilson was actually asked on Twitter recently if there's been enough support for the heroic real money auction house. He replied by saying that the results are split, as many seem to love as hate the idea. They still plan on gold only at ship, and it's too late to change that now. While I think that might be the better idea for now, or for the launch of the game at least, he didn't entirely rule the real money auction house for hardcore characters idea out, so we might well be seeing it at a later stage. What do you guys and girls think? Do you think it's a good idea allowing people to spend real money on characters that might die and lose it all? Do you think that it could cause too many customer support issues for Blizzard? Or is it something they can work around? I personally don't like the idea very much, and I honestly think that they'll be okay with just a gold-based auction house. But hey, that might just be me. Read more about this below, and with that done, let's move on to the Diablo 3 smalls. First up in the smalls, read some battle tag updates, then some changes were made to the home region that Southeast Asia, Australia and New Zealand will be connecting to for Diablo 3. An analyst predicts that Diablo 3 will sell 5 million copies in its first year. Read a simple mathematical equation that was used to calculate Diablo 3's release date long before it was announced. You can check some Diablo 3 gameplay out in French and German. Check out the Diablo podcast number 62 and Diablocast episode 49. Have a look at Purgatory for March the 19th. Check out a fan-made release date cinematic trailer for Diablo 3. And lastly, also right here on YouTube, you can see the Yogscast guys playing the Diablo 3 beta. Again. Sadly, that's all I have for you in the news this week. There are a couple of blue posts linked below if you want to check those out. They do cover some interesting topics such as pre-orders, collector's editions selling out, Inferno mode, and much more. Check back here soon for more news, like the video and do all that other good stuff, and most importantly, happy beta patch 15 and being a couple of days closer to launch.